That is beautiful, bro. We are live, by the way.
Oh, how you doing, everybody? Good evening on this beautiful Friday night. It's Aloha Friday. No work till Saturday. Woo.
It's Charlie.
Yeah.
It's Thursday.
No. No.
Aloha, everybody. Welcome to our COVID discussion.
Yep.
Well, I get my thing going here so I can see our comments. That was some nice music as we came on here. All right, we got everything all set up. All right, thank you guys for joining us again tonight. Tonight we have Senate President Ron Kouchi. He's going to try to recap. This has been a crazy week for everybody. Good news today was that we had 0 cases statewide, first time since the beginning of March. So we're doing extremely well there. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And slowly, businesses are opening up. So that's a good thing. So I am excited to hear from Senate President Kouchi tonight about what's going on. We know the legislature is going back into session on Monday, and he'll cover all of that. But I'm really interested in what's been happening as far as our quarantine status and the hotel room status. So hopefully, again, we don't prep our guests, so we don't know what he's going to say. We don't know what he's going to cover, but I can guarantee you that it will be very, very enlightening and interesting. So before we get started, go ahead and hit that share button and share this thing. Start a watch party, and let's get this thing out to as many people as we can as we wait for the 7 o'clock hour. Again, our shirts. This shirt is a thing of the past, but this is the new one here. You guys all saw it last night. Don't be a doodle boy. Boy. And if you can see, look at that. You can see all the sayings and the quotes from our experiences. And of course, on the bottom, thank you, Mayor Kawakami, for sharing the doodle boy phrase with us. I thought, for many of us, we hadn't heard that for a while. So these shirts are available. Again, Kirk Korea, Island Athletic Tees, has again donated all the shirts, all the printing, all his time. These shirts are $15. It's double-sided printed. So $15 a shirt, any size. And if you want, just send your to my messenger. Send the amount of shirts you want and the sizes. I'll send you a PayPal link or Venmo, and you can pay that away. And we will personally deliver these shirts to you once we get it from Kirk. So hope you guys enjoying the show so far. We've got some interesting people. But yeah, share this thing right now. Hit the share button. Yeah. And then I do want to say, I know I just posted about Russell Halawapu, good friend of all of ours. Prayers go out to his family. Condolences out. What a good brother. This guy was an amazing man. The phrase "you cannot judge a book by its cover," man, that's Russell Halawapu. Guy, everybody know him as a biker, but this guy was a community man. He was a man of God. He was a very strong Christian, and nothing but aloha from that guy to the community. Toys for Tots. I don't know how many countless numbers of food drives, core. Taking the disabled community out and in the water and getting them to serve. I mean, this guy was incredible. Huge loss for Kauai. And our prayers, our love go out to his entire family and his friends. I mean, this guy's, he's going to be sorely missed. So not the news I wanted to hear, but life, that's just life. And again, prayers out to his ohana.
Yep.
So, well, how was your day, Charlie? How was your day?
Well, did a lot of errands today. They came back to the west side. Um, just as a reminder, this goes out to everybody. Hopefully, we get the message out. Gang, I am just so proud of all of you for keeping a vigilant eye on violators. But now comes a time where, as we start to open things up, we need to use a little discretion. So I'm gonna say this: not all Japanese, not all white people, not all black people, not all Portuguese people, not even all Hawaiians. They're not all visitors. Okay, some live here, and I know that people, just because they see like a white person walking around the shopping mall, they think that, hey, they're violating quarantine. No, some actually have part-time homes here, and they've been here for more than 3 months, and they had quarantined themselves. We just have to be careful. Just be mindful. Some I have good friends that actually live here that are Caucasian, and I know they I wanna be gentle when I say this, but the bottom line is they get picked on, and it's sad. But let's just use a little discretion. If we have any, if we have any, if we have any problems, we have that 241-1711 number that we can call. So just be mindful. We gotta be aloha spiritu to each and every one of our neighbors. So that's all I wanted to say, Brother Mel.
Thank you for that, Charlie. Remember, aloha spirit, man. That these violators, they're violating, like Charlie said, 241-1711. No, post them on Facebook. Facebook not gonna do nothing.
Yeah.
I see all the angry posts. I can promise you, Zuckerberg don't give a rat's ass about violators. So call the number. You see people lounging on the beach, or don't confrontation. Just call 241-711 and go on with your life. Okay. Senate
No,
President.
I know we get Ron on tonight, right? Senator Ron Kouchi. But
Yes.
I like that new look. I like that new look. He looked like one scientist that worked with Dr. Fauci. I gotta say, I like that new look, man.
I got home middle after 6. I took a shower, and the COVID slicked down. It ain't kind of hairdo.
Patsy noticed the new backdrop, Senator. The new backdrop. She likes the backdrop.
Well, after the last side angle look I gave, I had a long lecture from Joy, and she instructed me about a stand that was in the condo that I could sit in front of the couch, put my iPad on top of it. And anyway, I've been coached. And speaking of coaching, she said, before you end, she sent me one text at like 6:50. Be sure you wish all of the moms a happy Mother's Day. I'm not going to mess this up and start laughing with you guys at the end of this show and forget. So I just went straight out. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms. Everything you do is just so incredible. And all of us husbands and dads and sons are just so grateful.
Thank you very much, Senate President, because you just reminded me that I need not forget as well. So happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers out there, to all of the grandmas out there, to all of the single dads out there. It's happy Mother's Day for you too. And we're just talking to Charlie before we in one of our discussions that, tomorrow night we're going to, like we did on Easter, we're going to take the night off.
Sunday night.
I'm sorry. Sunday night, we're going to take the night off on Sunday so everyone can enjoy your moms and your grandmas or whatever, and just enjoy your time with on that special day. So Sunday there will be no show. And we was thinking about bringing on 100 moms, but then we would need way more than an hour. So we're just gonna say, hey, you know what? You guys enjoy the special evening with your families, and we will do the same with our wives. Because I don't know about your wife, Charlie, but my wife's ready to kick me out, man. She says I'm consumed by this. I know you're not, Charlie. But anyway, Senate President, thank you again. I think you.
Is my microphone muted? Is it muted?
I think Senate President now you have been the most frequent visitor or guest on our show. So thank you for taking the time. It's been a heck of a week up at the Capitol and at the state. So we're just gonna turn it over to you, my friend, and give us an overview. We got some questions that we'll take notes of and pose it to you when you're done. But the floor is yours, sir.
Well, thank you. I just would start on a sad note for myself. I know quite a few people in our community. Back on Easter Sunday, former state representative, regent to the Board of Regents, rather, at the University of Hawaii, PUC member, and ultimately PUC chair Dennis Yamada passed away. And the difficulty in this COVID-19 environment and how to say goodbye to people and everything else. It was from cancer, not from COVID-19 that he passed away. But at 2 o'clock today, I was one of a very small group of people who were allowed to be at the graveside with Sharon to say goodbye. Governor Waihee was very close with Dennis, and he was there, and then his right-hand man at the PUC all those years, but again, he got me back to Kauai from the mainland. I worked for him in his last session in 1982. He was a great mentor. He was a better friend, and he'll really be missed. And he wasn't the chairman of the PUC when the final deal was made for KIUC, but he was the chair when we rejected the first price, which allowed us to come back in the second time and acquire it at a better price. And with all of the incredible things that KIUC has been doing, a few days before he passed, I was able to get him an email and did tell him that long after you and I have left, KIUC will still be here doing so many incredible things for the people of Kauai, and his work as a legislator, as a regent, was just tremendous contributions to Kauai. And he was at a time of the Four Amigos, where you had George Tuifuku in the Hawaii State Senate, Uncle Tony Kunimura, Richard Kawakami, Dennis Yamada, and Dennis ended as majority leader. Richard ended as Speaker of the House. Tony Kunimura was the finance chairman. George Tuifuku held powerful assignments in the Senate. And so we certainly had a great team back then. And the Four Amigos, now the last of the Four Amigos, is back with his compadres. With that, and thank you for the indulgence, the most significant development is increased measures being implemented in the airports. Also, now it appears there's going to be a more universal policy at the hotels, where you'll be able to get in your room and then you can't get back in unless you get your key redone. And I think that that'll go a long way. It's interesting. This morning, my desktop computer opens to MSN, and they have that box on the top left where you can keep hitting the arrow and browse through the top stories. One of the top stories was about the arrest of 4 people in Hawaii for breaking the quarantine. And there was a good national article talking about being one of the most restrictive areas or restrictive states in the nation, and discussed about the quarantine, people getting fined, people being threatened with jail, or people being put back on the airplanes to go back. Again, I think what was important in the hearing is also the local resident who was reported and arrested at Costco. And, while there hasn't been as much discussion about the residents returning, they are a critical component of this. But I have shared with my colleagues a lot of times for the returning local resident, 40% of the households are multi-generational families. Your friends and neighbors generally know if you've been traveling and you've just returned. And there is incredible peer pressure not to get your own grandparent, your own aunt or uncle, your friends sick if you wound up being sick. So we do have some added peer pressure for the local resident, but I would follow along what Charlie said. It's not all visitors. We all need to do our job, and I'm not saying this for sympathy. I'm just saying it factually. I've not returned home to Kauai because of what I have to do here. But if I came home, I know I would have to do the 14-day quarantine. And then it would be difficult for me to carry out my job, but I don't expect to be treated differently, because of the great work and sacrifice everybody on Kauai has made. But every resident has to take that attitude. And I think when you hear that national discussion, act like you're infected, work hard not to infect somebody else. And if you exercise that protocols, then you've got an opportunity really to hopefully, limit any kind of spread. But we need to do that, and the airport is a critically important area. The other thing that I think you're going to see, if it wasn't on the 6 o'clock news, I think the Department of Health is going to take a new position on contact tracing. There was an interesting article in Civil Beat, and the title said, what is the path to recovery or something like that. So I started reading it, not thinking that this article was going to be about contact tracing and the position of Dr. Anderson and Dr. Park. But it became clear that they are the only two individuals of the larger group working on best practices for Hawaii and what would be ways that we could start reopening our economy safely. And a key element to that is contact tracing. And I believe that they've met with the governor this morning, and I believe that they are going to be on board. I am aware, that while they indicated they've talked to the University of Hawaii nursing or medical people, the head of the nursing school has indicated they have at least 100 students that would be available to work on contact tracing. We have the private hospitals that are all in this and partnered with us that have available personnel. In the Hawaii National Guard, we have Guard members who are medical personnel. At Tripler Hospital, the Department of Defense has 40 individuals who are in the medical field that are capable to do contact tracing. But the military needs to be invited in and asked. And so I believe that we can quickly get to that 400 or 500 number that everybody is talking about with the ramping up that the Department of Health is doing and with a collaboration. I was just on a Zoom call earlier this afternoon. And when I had said that, if we're going to do this safely, we need contact tracing and we need enough people to make sure that we contain any positive tests. The head of Chaminade School was on that Zoom meeting and through the chat feature indicated Chaminade College has contact tracing ability to assist us. So there are partners, but you need to humble yourself. You need to ask for help, and our community is incredible how it rallies out to support us. But with that kind of support, then that would be great. And it bothered me to read the article when they said, well, most of the time we only contact 2 people, so we don't need all of these guys. I walk through the building when I go to work, and I might run into someone from the custodial service in DAGS. We have sheriffs who are walking around dealing with the building. And then if you go to the restroom, you have others who are there. I don't see how you get to 2 people. I think that, there's a lot more that are involved. And I've listened enough to, is it patient 31, and how many people you run into, and the charts that show if you're sitting on this table at the restaurant, how many other people may be affected. If you wound up walking into Costco or Safeway, the bank, those are all areas where there are a lot of people. And so we could have them on board, we could have them trained, and it is my greatest hope that we use almost none of them, because we will not have any kind of hot spots, and we won't have clusters that would require them to ramp up and do the job.
Ron, real world example, Senator Nishihara, when he tested positive, how many contacts? How
Well,
many
he
contacts?
was in a leadership meeting with at least 14 people for 2.5 hours. He then called IT because they had helped him. He then called the sergeant at arms. They had helped him. Who sat next to him on the floor? When we had the recess, who did he go over to talk story with? And then that's only at the Capitol, not when he went home. And you got to remember, at that time, we weren't under lockdown yet. So you could go stop at a restaurant, stop at a store. Nobody was wearing masks, and there weren't restrictions, and there wasn't that, social distancing and the tape on the floor at the time when this all occurred.
Yeah, I know that, and that's an extreme because of his position. But my point was that, two people, two contacts. That's if you only go home with your spouse. That's it. You didn't stop anywhere. You didn't nothing. You didn't go to work. But do you know why? I mean, contact tracing has been advocated by everyone in this country. Every single expert has said if you want to start opening up the economy, that is a must. Mayor Caldwell this morning basically said, he was not comfortable with the state's position on position with the contact tracing, because he didn't believe, and rightfully so, we don't have enough people in the event we start getting positive cases again. But why the sudden change? Because the governor and Anderson and Park, they were never sold on the contact tracing. They were more, in my opinion, were more concerned or more satisfied or comfortable in the fact that we have enough hospital beds. We have enough resources in the event we had a surge. So why the sudden change?
Well, the thing I'd like to think is, thank you for the work that you and Charlie do, and getting information out to have different points of view, people with the ability and the opportunity to explain why we think it's important. You've certainly expressed why you think it's important. And we have gotten to the point where they are the only, or were, I hope, the only voice in opposition. And I believe now that there is no one that has accepted their premise as being the best way to go. And everybody overwhelmingly would like to move in a different direction, which is more robust contact tracing. And if they say what I believe they're going to say tomorrow, or have issued a press release, I haven't had time to see the 6 o'clock news with the meetings I had scheduled after the funeral service, then I say, I'm done looking back. We've done our job in convincing them, and it's time to move forward to get these people trained, to get these people prepared so that we can continue to open other businesses in a healthy, safe, responsible way, that we can try to return some level of normalcy to our lives. Again, the sacrifice has been great, and nobody has sacrificed more in human costs and in financial costs than the residents of Kauai. And, we should be able to give you some level of assurances that with everything you did, we've got your back with the resources that are available as we start to slowly open up the economy.
You know, Ron, let me ask you something, and this goes to your introduction about the contact tracing. I know that's been a hot button topic, and I'm glad, you know, they're addressing that. But the thing that I'm curious about, when medical students come out from medical school, everything is anatomical, medical, and the likes. Usually with, and correct me if I'm wrong, contact tracing, when you start to deal with humans and trying to get information from humans, that's almost a different set of mindset on what you ask, because you're trying to narrow down the, or try to connect the dots, right, of every person they came in contact with. And it's trying to get them into this corridor that they don't have too much room to move, that they cannot help but give, I was with this person, or I was in this particular area, that it becomes very specific so that the investigation can go smoothly. Because if questions are asked that are so broad, that means they go on full swath, a full 180-degree swath. Nobody can make heads or tails. So I think, you know, my thing is, I'm hoping that the training that these students receive will give them the ability to say, hey, sometimes you got to think outside of the box, and you got to be real. Basically, you got to be on okole when you start asking questions, because that's what it's going to take. Because I'm sure we'll get some people that just not going to tell you everything. And that's the kind of stuff that I worry about. That's the kind
Well, Charlie, though, I'll tell you, I agree with you. You know, my chief of staff, Harrison Kawate, was, you know, criminal defense lawyer for many years. And, you know, I talk to somebody and I hear the story and I'm going, oh, that's pretty interesting. And then he starts to ask them questions. And by the time he's done asking his questions, the story that emerges is nothing like the story I was told. And, you know, I never really asked the hard questions. But I don't know if I have your email, Charlie, but happy Mother's Day. I know I have Stephanie's. I got Mel's email. What I will send to you is something that I received. And I'm always fond of saying, I'm not the smartest guy that does this job, but I am constantly looking for people who are smarter than me that are going to help me get smart. And just this week, when I was talking about this issue, somebody emailed me what they're doing in Massachusetts on contact tracing. And for exactly what you said, they actually have two levels of contact tracers. One position is the so-called entry level and go get that data that you talked about. But at some point, if it gets to a situation where somebody more experienced or somebody with better medical knowledge needs to be in, then that form is moved into the tier 2 file. And then the experienced medical background person then takes it off. But as you know, Massachusetts was third to New York and New Jersey, and they needed to ramp up fast and they needed to ramp up overnight. And it's amazing to me that that was the plan they came up with, because in the United States, the place with the highest level of college degrees and advanced degrees is Massachusetts, with MIT, you know, Boston University, Harvard, and all of these schools that are in the Massachusetts area. And they figured out a way. And so, you know what? I'm not going to sit here and try to tell people how I think it should be done. I'm not a medical person. I just forward the email from all those smart guys in Massachusetts and said, look, here's how they did it. And here's how they figured out about tier 1, but they acknowledged and they were smart enough to know that somebody was going to run into the problem you described. And then you be smart enough to give it to the better experienced person to get to those questions the way they should be asked to get the information we need.
Well, you know, a lot of times, and Mel and I have talked about this over and over again, that, and I guess this goes to one's, and like your dad, right? Police background. Sometimes we got to ask questions and you don't let go, whatever the question may be. And it all depends if the person asking the question gets that intestinal fortitude to keep on pushing until there's no more questions to be asked. Then you probably got all the information you want. But a lot of times, especially when those who slip through the cracks, it was almost as if the airport asked a set of questions that just went stop. So I think with contact tracing, you got to be able to go beyond that and keep on pushing that envelope. Do you agree?
Well, and Mel worked under my dad. So there's two of us that knows what that look was like. And that part about not letting go on the question. Absolutely. And I've heard you and Mel talking on the show before. I mean, it is an art. It is something you gain over experience and time, but also as a police officer, there's a certain training you get to start looking for things. And those things also include, if it's face-to-face, body language and other nonverbal cues that certainly can help you figure out what you're being told and how truthful the person is that you're talking to.
You know, the thing with contact tracing, because, you know, police officers typically they're questioning a suspect. So, you got to kind of out trick the suspect. But with contact tracing, it could be legitimate forgetfulness. I mean, you know, it's you guys all know this. We're all older already, and the memory not as sharp. But they just need help remembering. You know, with the trigger words, like, did you stop at the store? Triggering that memory so they can remember where they went and where they stopped and who they spoke to. And you cannot just say, where did you go in the last?
I was going to say, Mel, I just talked to Senator Nishihara earlier this week and said, oh, by the way, as we're talking about contact tracing, I heard this person didn't get called or that person. He goes, oh, yeah, I forgot about seeing them. You know, yet he went to IT, he went to the Sergeant at Arms, he called my office. He went through all these others. He had seen his daughter, he made sure he called his daughter, called his wife, but yeah, there were a couple that as he was doing his best to remember who, but yeah, he just run into them. And then as you guys have talked about, if you could have announced the window when they were in a particular establishment, you walk past people who you have no idea who their names are. So you can't even give the name unless you can say, oh yeah, 2 days ago, I remembered when I was walking, then the guy had a purple shirt and glasses. Oh, I saw, somebody with sandals. You can't get those guys.
Today I went to Kukui Grove to go pick up lunch from Sony's. Joe, Adric, and I were working at the office today, and we went to Sony's to go get lunch. That was today. But God forbid I test positive next week. And would I remember that I went to Sony's today? Probably not. Probably not. But I remember I was working with Joe. I mean, a checklist with the trigger questions wouldn't be hard to put together. 50 questions, 60 questions, whatever it is, that triggers the memory to say, where did you go lunch? Where did you work? Did you work last week every day? And I mean, it's not a lot of training. I think the training is to get through that checklist of trigger words or trigger questions that can really make a difference. And I think that's really I don't believe, I gotta believe that our people are not heartless, and they wouldn't try to hide that if they tested positive. I would guess that they wouldn't want to hide that. They would want to help the community by saying where they went. I know Charlie posted once, and I agree, and I would do the same. If I tested positive, I would put it on Facebook. I would put it on Facebook. I said, hey guys, I'm not here for sympathy, not here for any pity, but I just tested positive. If you're near me in the last 14 days or whatever it is, please call your doctor. I would do that.
And then the news I was going to say, the news of the last 2 days is not helpful, right? Valet to the president, positive. And then, that person with the vice president today who was negative yesterday because they're testing every day, then is positive today. But, they're all in that White House area. So now, we got an interesting case study, to see if it's going to become a cluster. Is it at the two? And these are individuals who are, in the highest level of our government that have more rapid testing available to them to try to be preventive than is available to, the normal person here in Hawaii.
Well, you know what's so, and I posted something today to the fact that, I had the experience working with in the 80s with Vice President Dan Quayle when he came to Maui. And he spent the 2 weeks there, and I had the opportunity to work on the advanced team, and just seeing how the bubble is set up. I mean, that bubble is so tight, and so what amazed me is how they have the daily testing, and yet one of the inner circle of this sterile bubble gets contaminated. That is kind of like mind-boggling. Like, how did it happen? Because that in and of itself is a breach. I don't care how you look at it. So now the question is, was a person outside of the bubble bringing it in? It had to be that way, but yet they're very confident of their daily testing that it got through that bubble.
Maybe he should have worn his mask at the Mayo Clinic.
There you go.
Just saying, when you're looking through contact tracing and what happened and where were you?
Hey, Ron, we'll start hitting some of these questions, but I have this question. I think I know the answer, but I'll let you answer. If you refuse to go back to work when called back to work, does your unemployment get cut off? Oh, wait.
It's supposed
Hang
to.
on. Wait, no, there's another part of that question. If you work for your boss under the table.
Well, I don't think there are any rules if it's under the table, because you're not collecting unemployment because you have no record.
So I'm thinking you're not going to get unemployment if you.
So you can refuse to go back if you're being paid under the table, and then you will continue not to be paid under the table. I would assume. I'm not familiar with that process right now.
That's that's a really interesting question. I know we had Harakal. What's his first name? Glenn.
Randy
Harakal. He was on a few nights ago, and we asked him that question. If you get called back and you refuse, and obviously at that point you get terminated, then you lose. And he said you lose your unemployment. So he said when your boss calls you and says, "Hey, are you going to come back when we're able to open?" You say yes. You don't say no. And then when you open, then you make the determination whether or not you want to make that decision to go back. The other question, the airline pilot that dropped off 2 passengers at Salt Pond, do you have any information on what happened to the pilot?
No, but we're certainly asking, because I was very surprised that the focus was on the 2 passengers. And, to indicate that you were unaware, and I'm not an attorney, but it would have seemed like that is aiding and abetting.
Yes.
And it's kind of hard to say, oh, I didn't know that they were going to do that. Or if I were the pilot, at minimum, I would have had a form and I would have had them sign and date to say that I have completed my 14-day quarantine, I'm eligible for this flight, and I am attesting to you, so that you can turn a document over, and then if that would get them in more trouble, great.
Do we even know if it was a commercial pilot? Do we know if it was just a private pilot that brought some friends over? Do you know?
I don't know if he's commercial or not, but Kevin Shaw, who had developed that Marriott, he had a commercial, or he had a license, and they had a plane. He used to fly over. I don't think you would consider him a commercial operator. So, I mean, I'm aware that there are people. I think years ago, Dennis Isaki used to fly one of the small planes between the islands, and so there are those who are pilots that I don't think we'd put them in the category of commercial that could have been available. So I don't know
The,
the
o-
answer to that.
the only difference, well, commercial pilot would mean that he was able to collect money for it. That was it. I mean, a private pilot can
I
fly all he wants, and he can bring
I think
passengers.
we're in that area of under the table compensation. I'm beginning
Oh,
to
okay,
better
okay.
understand what the term means now.
You,
Yeah, I
you
know
know, I
we had a lot of people chiming in, and Brian Fitchett, who's a pilot, he's a good friend of mine. He flies for the air ambulance over here, the twin engine, and because there were a lot of questions about flight plans, and he's saying if you're flying visual and you're not using instruments, and you're flying during the day, then you don't need to file a flight plan. That is a public airstrip, so. I know a lot of people are saying, he's supposed to file a flight plan, but according to Brian Fitchett, who posted that, that's not required if you're flying visual and you're not using instruments. You're flying at daytime, and basically you don't need to use instruments. So, but
well,
he
well,
questioned the commercial aspect.
well, I think the last point, because that supposedly that flight came from Maui. So when the thing got over airspace on Oahu, they would have been in contact with OTC or the Oahu Traffic Control. But my understanding was they was below the VFR and they just flew that pattern all the way over. So it sounds in a way, without knowing all the facts, but one would guess that they made it purposely. They flew that way not to get detected. I mean, that's the way it sounds.
All right. Another
See how
question.
smart you get in by doing the show, Mel?
I tell you, man. I tell you, it's
More than
incredible
you
what
ever
we
thought you
learn.
would learn.
And I went to pilot school. I went to all of that stuff.
Yeah,
It's
I
like
went
a
to
long time
Kamehameha
ago.
school and the lunch was good. I can tell you that. The lunch was good.
I was thinking about taking Charlie and reflying that path, but we both don't fit in a Cessna 172. So unfortunately, we cannot. We're gonna recreate the crime scene, boy.
And then the last time they cut the top of my t-shirt that I was wearing, it was green. I got some grief from somebody. I took a picture. I said it was a University of Hawaii baseball shirt. So to kind of be fair, I kind of pulled one out that had some red and some blue. So, you know, before I start getting heat on fashion, the angle that I was sitting, it wasn't my wife on the green shirt. It was somebody else. It was a different friend.
Another question: Why would we open malls but not allow people to lay on the beaches?
Well, all they keep saying from everything I watch is that in the beaches they still seem to congregate is one of the things that they're concerned about, and that they would be generally not wearing masks. Now, the other half say it's out in the open air. It's probably better and safer. The vitamin D is good for you. The exercise is good. I just think that if you want to go to the beach, do it responsibly and safely, and nobody takes it away. At the mall, people should have their mask on. I think some of the best practices is going to be on the right side of the mall as you're looking down. You're going to walk one way, and on the left side of the mall, you're going to walk another way so that you don't have people intersecting each other. And then on Kauai, the mayor did a good job of saying for so many square feet, then you get so many people in a facility, but you're going to have to count them, and then you're going to have to put the X's on the floor and things like that. But there are other places that I've gone to on Oahu that have the sign that only this many people can be in at once. And, I've patiently waited on the sidewalk for my turn. And then I tried to go to the bank on Beretania, the Makiki First Hawaiian. And I said, oh, Look like a little bit lined, and I don't have that much time. I was trying to run real quick, so I better just get back to the Capitol. And when I got back on Baratania, the line went around the corner and down the sidewalk. And then somebody later told me, "You realize that was May 1st. People got paid. They were there trying to cash their check." The next time I went, I walked right in. There wasn't that kind of crowd, but they had someone there monitoring the people going in and out. Sorry about the phone. That was Senator Favela. Maybe he's trying to say like call in and take my time.
Well, with everything that's going on right now, I would suggest to the viewers take advantage of the apps at the different banks because that saves out a lot of time. First Hawaiian get one app. You take a shot with your smartphone front and back, hit the deposit, there it goes. And the thing, and they tell you to hold on to the check if it doesn't make it across. But ever since we've been doing it, Steph and I, it's just been really, really easy because they closed down First Hawaiian in Waimea. So now you got to either go all the way to Koloa, all the way to Lihue, and you save the trip. Now, Ron, I wanted to ask you this question. In your discussions with your fellow senators, they said social distancing. They pounded into our heads so much. We've done it so much. We know what it is. Then they also said that it's better when, if you're in an enclosed space, to have cross ventilation. And this goes back to the mall. I think the mall is restrictive in a sense because once you get in the mall, the ventilation is kind of cut off from both sides, right, of stores. But then you have better ventilation at the beaches. Social distancing, because the stores are closer, because you don't mandate how many people can be at the mall at any given time. At any given time, you could have a huge mass. And the thing is, who's going to police the crowd going into the mall? So I think on the beaches, I'm just throwing it out, have the senators in the COVID committee discuss that in the beaches, you would probably run less of a gathering than you would do in a mall. Have they discussed that?
Well, yes, I think so. And I think part of it is why you had the governor step back from the no beaches at all policy. But what I'm hopeful is by next week, we will have adopted either the Johns Hopkins model, which Mayor Caldwell is using. I'm not sure if Mayor Kawakami is using that. Mark Mugaishi of HMSA on the Speakers Committee has the New Zealand model. General Hara with Haima had put together a model, and most of these contain a lot of the similar elements. But what it should ultimately say is if your positives are at this rate, and if your death or mortality rate is at this level, if your bed capacity is at this level, and your ICU availability is at this level, available ventilators is this, and you have this much contact tracers, then these are the kind of things that you could open. And what you would do is have explanations like putting the tape down and how many people by the square foot, etc. So it's clear guidance to everyone as to what would be appropriate and what goals do we have to meet. So clearly for Kauai, if you wanted to, you could just blow right through everything and go to the most open level because it's 0, 0, 0. You're not having positives. You're not having anybody who has died, and you have no beds, no ventilators, no ICUs. But they do say that you never should go through 2 levels and skip. You need to still have a gradual progress so that you can monitor with what you've opened. You have not created that potential to overwhelm your health system. But I think that would be really helpful to give the guidance, and I hope that's coming out next week.
But I think, we just talked about this the other night, and you may have heard me say this. Because we're an island state, our buffer is the ocean. It's pretty well defined that the COVID virus, we scrubbed it. There is no community spread. We scrubbed it pretty clean. So we know it's coming from the outside. So as far as movement on the island, I don't think it's going to create any a spike or breakout, because we've actually scrubbed each island bare to the bone, and we know where the virus is on Oahu. So that's why they've had a successful rate now in containing it in those areas. So I think everything that comes from the outside in would be the question. So I think for residents here, and that's the question that's always been posed, is if we have done such a great job at scrubbing it, and there's no chance of us, spreading it ourselves, why not let us move around a little bit more? But then again, the question abounds us is that all we need is a few to walk amongst us, right? That's from that.
Yeah, but again, with the directive from the governor for yesterday, there was quite a bit that did open on Kauai, and I believe as you continue to see the strong numbers that are coming out daily, there will be a continued relaxation of what would be open and the kind of things we could do. And it's funny, because to stay connected, I mean, your show is informative. I have people that I check in with daily, and I appreciate the husbands who allow me to talk to their wives 5 times a day to get those updates, Charlie. But I obviously check on Facebook to see what's going on too, and what are people talking about. So what are people talking about on Kauai? Well, guess what? The contraflow is open. I saw that reference enough times. So, clearly more vehicular traffic is out there. My wife needed to get to Lawai today, and she was like, well, I don't know what time I should be leaving. No, she went the other day, but now there's more traffic. And, I never had the conversation with her that, I gotta worry about the traffic, because there was no traffic. But so you can see that the activity has picked up, and Mayor Kawakami has been going with the governor as he's opened things up. So I expect other things to start opening up next week, including the Hawaii State Legislature.
Which is where we're gonna go real soon. I did want to say though, Ron, I think you mentioned it earlier, Charlie did as well, that and I've said this so many times as far as the individual responsibility. We had Chip Behuth on last night, and he spoke of the public access that goes down to the beach right adjacent to the Sheraton. And of course, the county forced him to open up the gate. They put a gate there because there was no reason for that gate to be open. The county made him open the gate, and sure enough, not tourists, local residents decided to go down there because it's a nice little pocket that most police officers don't have the time to go down into those little pockets. And they were partying, drinking, congregating to a point where his security had to go down and eventually call the police. These are the kinds of things, these are the kinds of activities, I think, as we get more complacent, that is the soft spot. That's the weak link that should we get an influx of this virus, whether it's from a visitor, whether it's from a returning resident, whether it's from a worker that's here on doing essential work, a construction work, or whatever the case may be, those are the kinds of activities that we saw what happened in Molokai. One person in a gathering of 5 or 6 or 7 people that will go home and come in contact with 5 or 6 or 7 people. That's where the danger can be. And that's what, the warning is really, don't take this thing lightly. The numbers can change in a second, and we all got to be responsible and stop blaming the tourists, because it ain't tourists. Tourists, we'll take care of them with the quarantine, but we shouldn't be pointing fingers at the tourists if we cannot be disciplined ourselves. And I think we got to really be disciplined on that. Otherwise, like I said, this thing can change in a second. You get a cluster of 20, 30, 40 people on Kauai, your resources at the hospital all of a sudden becomes inadequate. And that's where we got to be really careful.
Quickly, yes.
Yeah.
The other thing before we did transition, I just wanted to say I am, well, I shouldn't say amused, but I'm pleased to see that several of my colleagues have found, the show to be a great way for them to communicate information and what they've been doing at the Capitol. At that point, it's really, appreciated by me for them sharing with the people of Kauai. And, I'm not on every night, but, they're there firsthand in the meetings. And I'm in my office watching the meetings. And there have been a couple of times where I really wanted to go down and say something, but I have been able to restrain myself, especially about the airport. And they eventually covered what I wanted to cover. And, I did tell them I would give them the room. They committed to me how hard they were ready to work when we had the first meeting. And none of us imagined that they would have put in the time that they have. And it's been amazing. And then they are all great. Senators Favela, Dela Cruz, and Kim in acknowledging the staff that has worked so hard to make all of this happen, has worked so hard to try to turn around all of the notes to get it posted, the recordings posted so that for those who could not watch live, that they'd have the opportunity to get the information. To Jane Ozaki, I don't think she knew Glenn Wakai, and kind of met him on Facebook and then ultimately got to meet him in person. And I will tell you, based on what Senator Wakai said when he was on the show, I do not agree with everything Senator Wakai says. But having been on a legislative body, Mel, you know that we agree on more things that we disagree.
Yeah.
And the most important thing that I appreciate and love about Senator Wakai is that he didn't sugarcoat it, he didn't fluff it, and he didn't try to hyperbolic at 30,000 feet and not answer questions. He was real. He gave you exactly what was on his mind, and it was as direct as can be.
We have witnessed that from pretty much all of our guests. Ron, I was saying, not just to stroke your ego, but I've said, first of all, you are the brightest politician I know, and that is just the truth. And your Senate team in that committee, and they were here a couple of times. They're incredible. See, we watch. A lot of us on this show watch the hearings. I post it right onto Facebook Live whenever they go on. But we get tickled when they say things like, one of our constituents said, or one of our constituents, and it was one of our constituents that were here on this show that posted a comment and we repeated it, or Charlie and I texted it, and say, hey, check on this. Can Ron, we text you as well. So for us, it makes us feel like we are part of this thing, and you folks are listening, regardless of what the outcome will eventually be. To have your senators there listening and sharing what we're sharing is very rewarding for us anyway. And just wanted to let you know that's pretty cool. The communication is there, and I appreciate that 100%. I know, Charlie, we talked about that the other day.
Yeah. Yeah.
It tickles us. And the whole thing with the room key thing, that I wish I had thought of that. I didn't, but somebody posted that. Somebody sent it in a comment. I thought, how
Paul
brilliant.
Toner was doing it at the Marriott at
Yeah.
Kalapaki. So let's give Paul Toner all the shout out and props in the world. The thing that touched me about last night with Chip Behu, there was a lot of negative directly that Chip on the comments initially. And then when people saw and heard his heart, it was great to see people acknowledge and really be thankful for how engaged Tim is. And, not all of these guys are corporate guys that are sending it all back to the mainland or some foreign country. And you really heard firsthand from Chip about how much he pours back into this community every day, and that kind of support. And that was really great to hear his story. I know I wrote him a letter when they had exceeded, that $1 amount for table 53. And, when he was at the Capitol for Visitor Industry Day, he said, he's telling his colleagues, I've got a letter from Ron Kouchi. And that letter is right on my desk so everybody can see that he knows what the Sheraton Kauai does, and as a GM, what I do to support the community I live in.
I just got to make one real quick point because we did praise the hell out of Paul Toner a few nights ago. I didn't give him my source, but I did say that I got it from a very reliable source that Paul Toner was doing this. And then, my gosh, I got emails and messages saying cannot be because the Marriott at Kalapaki Beach is closed, and we're closed until a certain date. So I did a little bit of investigating and found out that while the Marriott Kalapaki Beach is closed to the general public, they have the Delta flight crew that flies in every night. They also got to deal with the timeshare owners that are coming in. And that practice is being done, whether they're a flight crew, whether they're a visiting vacation or a timeshare owner. So it is happening. And Paul Toner does deserve the credit because that is
We
a
need
sure
him working at the airport because he obviously knows what the quarantine rules are. That was kind of interesting. Well, no, we weren't treating the flight crews that way, but now we are. And
yeah.
it was good to see Ford Fujigami there in front of the committee yesterday. I mean, clearly Ford is on top of it, and he is aware of what should be done, and he's been working hard to make some of the changes that the committee and the public have been asking for.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So what? You guys go back into session on Monday. What's going to
Yeah,
happen?
but
What's the preview?
it'll be a limited session. We are going to pass the budget. We are going to pass the capital improvement budget. There's some other, two other or three other financial bills. And the reason why we decided to go back in, even though the capital is locked down, so nobody's going to be able to come in except members and staff, and the governor's staff who goes through the building, but all doors will be locked. You have to come in through the glass doors at the chamber level. They'll have the National Guard there taking that temperature scan. Everybody needs to show their ID. They will ask, do you have any symptoms, or look if somebody's coughing or sick for the safety of everyone involved. The House will have to have members seated in the gallery to get appropriate distancing. But these are the bills that got to get done in case we can never get back. We are optimistic that we're going to be able to get back in June and consider additional measures like we normally would have, and also resume with the building open using the best practices. But what was concerning to me and a motivating factor is, as we've been reopening our economy, and we can control, as we've all been talking about, what we do, but we cannot control the amount of planes that are starting to come in. And if we somehow lose it and this comes back up and we got to shut down, at least we will have gotten the bills that we need to conclude on completed. Among the bills that are going to be passed is money in the CARES Act, and why that's critically important, not just for Kauai, but Maui and the Big Island. In the CARES money, it was for states and counties over 500,000. So Oahu got their share, the 383 million or something like that. And it was left up to the states to figure out what the counties got. So they've done the formula, and I had asked for the specific breakout. I didn't get it before I left the building, but Maui and Kauai and the Big Island will split $179 million. It's all done by population. And so if Kauai got 20 and they each got 40-40, you are looking at about 35 million that would be coming to Kauai. Now the Big Island's a little bigger, and Kauai may not be, exactly. So, it may go down a little. Obviously, the Big Island will get a little more than Maui because it's population based. But there's going to be some assistance. And then, not to beat on a dead horse, but back to contact tracing, all of the mayors have said that they would want to commit some of that money to beef up contact tracing, because they know that contact tracing is going to be critical to a healthy reopening of our economy. If the DOH steps out, if we are able to start moving forward with these partnerships, then maybe their money can be redirected in a different direction. But maybe more importantly, it doesn't hurt to have trained, qualified people if this comes back. And Dr. Fauci has said he's worried it will be back in the winter and back with a vengeance. And we would be better prepared, better trained to be able to ensure the safety of our residents.
We have the ability right now, because everything has to either come in by ship or air. So we're lucky compared to the other states where you can just drive across state lines. And they probably have harder borders to protect. Having said that, Ron, one thing that really, I guess, really is concerning to many of us is the fact that, over the last couple of days, we've seen a lot of things come out of the governor's office. Now, I understand he's the administrative branch, the legislative branch. I think people are looking for assurances. I mean, do you know the tempo up in his office, how he is as far as, every time he says something happened. It's like a boo-boo. And I guess, we all want to support, but it's very, very hard when there's mixed messaging going on. I mean, even this morning on the news, Grace Lee is trying to ask the governor, lieutenant governor, about his comments about Caldwell. So there's always some kind of movement going on, and it's almost difficult for the laypersons like ourselves in trying to wrap our heads around what's happening up there. Do you have any pulse on what's going on?
Well, the messaging has been confusing. Part of the confusing messaging is the governor says, and the lieutenant governor says, we're going to test close contacts. The lieutenant governor on April 3rd at a press conference coined the phrase, if you hug them, if you kiss them, we test them. And yet on 4 or 5 occasions, Dr. Anderson or Dr. Park, and a couple of those was in front of the COVID-19 committee, said we're not going to test close contacts, especially if they're asymptomatic. So it now is, really undermining the governor in trying to send a message when we're all not on the same page. And I have stressed that to his chief of staff that, we need to be clear. And, if they're not on board, then they shouldn't be in front of the mic. He was the elected governor of the state of Hawaii. And, Dr. Green has said the same thing. I think we have strong medical data on our side to support the position of contact tracing. We've had all the other private, hospitals and medical people all in support of it. But going back to being clear in the messaging, I think if, they can say this is the adopted matrix that we use, and the governor could stand up at the press conference and say, we're in zone A, we were now moving to zone B. These are the reasons why. Let me show you clearly where, like I said, our positives are, our mortality rate is, what is our bed capacity, what is our ICU, our ventilators, and then available to make sure we contain the spread. This is why we're going. When we go to the next level, and then it lists businesses and other things like that as well. And then it would be very clear for everybody. And I think it would help get us on point in doing our messaging. I think, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. Especially when I was quarantined and New York was such a hot spot, watch 5 in the morning, Governor Cuomo, and they have the boards. I watch Mayor Kawakami's from Kima, and they got the graphics. They got the graphics up on the big board behind him, so you can visually see what he's saying. Mayor Kawakami's presentations are incredible, concise, to the point, informative, and easy to understand.
Okay,
You
Mel?
know, different metrics. We saw what happened in Texas. The state that the governor decided to open up. The day after he opened up, the numbers just spiked ridiculously high. And his response was that they were looking at different metrics, not so much the cases, but hospitalization, deaths, recoveries, and so forth. So it's a delicate thing. I mean, I do not envy our governor, but I think the messaging's got to really be. I don't know how he goes back now and says, that basically I was wrong about the testing, and we were wrong, and now we feel testing is important, but that is yet to be seen.
Well,
Ron,
but
can you
it's not the first time though, Mel. I was incredibly upset when I told the governor on that the day after we found out about the first case on Kauai, in the Sunday press conference when they asked Dr. Anderson about controlling the airport. He basically said, well, it doesn't matter doing anything there, because you're going to come in. It's coming. But they also knew that they were narrowly testing and it was probably in our community already. Because he kept saying at the end, it's not if, when. And he was saying it with such confidence that, it was happening. And now, when they stand up and say, we got some of the strictest things and everything else, but you weren't the one advocating for us to get to that place. But we're here. The results have worked, and I'm incredibly grateful, that we have such low numbers. I certainly send my thoughts and prayers out to the 17 families that were affected by those deaths, but to represent Kauai and to know the job done by the people of Kauai and to have no deaths on Kauai is just an incredible achievement.
Ron, there was this article that came out, and I don't know if you've seen it, but it talks about, when we've been sounding the trumpet to get more testing, and Dr. Anderson was opposed to more testing. But the article relates that the states with the lowest numbers gets more federal aid. Did you see that article?
You can make the numbers work any way you want to. And because of our low population, like Senator Leahy had a lot of influence in, the first CARES money, and he represents Vermont, which is a small state about the size of Hawaii. He made sure that the minimum payment to states and local governments was 1.25 billion, so that it wasn't just straight population, and even the small states were going to need some help. But when you go by the per dollar, and California has 41 million people, the amount of people New York has, when you go by the per capita, we'll come out. It's just, how did you work the numbers and what happened? And, it's kind of like, not all of the money collected on Oahu is spent on Oahu. We realize the neighbor islands can't generate that kind of income. So, you got to help out the smaller counties. And, in that case, that winds up happening. But if you look at the amount of money that went into the large states, And they had that also showing, in PPP and everything else. When you measure by the billions, New York and California did well. When you measure by the per business and everything else, Hawaii is in the top 5 as far as over 80% of our small businesses had accessed it. At the end of the day, are people doing okay? Are we doing the job? And then, if Senator Schatz, Senator Hirono, Congresswoman Gabbard, and Congressman Case are doing the job for us, thank you very much.
Okay.
I know, and we're running a little past time, Ron. If you can give us a couple more minutes. Yesterday, I see the Lieutenant Governor got kind of caught off guard because the question regarding how we count the deaths, and that in fact we were counting the deaths in the no longer isolated number. In fact, they were, yeah, I mean, which I think is
I guess
ridiculous.
technically that's correct.
Well, technically released from isolation. Again,
But
the
you would
only
have
reason
thought
it got
there'd
triggered my
be,
memories because you talked about you can make the numbers work however you want, but released from isolation, in my opinion, or in my perspective, or how I read it, is they were released from isolation, not that they died, but to increase the release from isolation numbers, they put the numbers, the 17 deaths in that count. And
because
Lieutenant
it
Governor
should
was,
simply be maximum negative outcome, 17 deaths. You want to brag about release from isolation as a positive outcome because they got better, like that young man from Eva Beach,
right.
but it's supposed to be that we had a positive, in this case, positive good result when you were released, not a negative outcome because you were released because you passed away, but having been on the show one of the earlier times, and we had discussed that thing about per county, and how many tests were done by county, not the positives. And initially DOH was only worried from a clinical standpoint of what the positives were on each of the islands, and they weren't very interested in the other information. But I took that questions from you guys, talked to Lieutenant Governor Green coming from the neighbor islands. He understood that, well, it may have no clinical medical value, that the residents of those communities were very interested and concerned, and that number had a meaning to them. And at least we started to finally get some of that kind of data produced. But it's not been easy, but we have been persistent, and in most of the cases persistence has paid off.
I will say, and I don't have the numbers right now, but I do check the numbers daily of the tests by county. And since they relaxed the requirements, I will say that I believe, I can't remember what it was, but I think it was, we're doing about 60 tests per day now, which is significantly higher than what we were doing prior to the relaxation of the requirements. So I did want to hit this one question, Ron, and it's to you, Ron. Will the legislature be looking at the real property tax exemption for veterans? I responded
So
and
the
said,
quick answer is no, because the counties control real property taxes.
he's okay. He's saying that the state mandates anyway. That's what I responded, but he's saying that it is.
But the short answer for this session in May, we are limiting to 5 or 6 bills. You can certainly email me at senkouchi at capital, and it's CAPTIOL .hawaii.gov, and I'll be happy to go
Okay.
and follow up on that. I guess I should have been like Josh Green and had my 8.5 by
Oh.
11, my email on, and held it up as I said that I'll be better prepared if I appear again.
Okay, what's the address?
SENKOUCHI, and it's at capital CAPITOL .hawaii.gov.
Okay.
He's gonna do it. He's gonna do it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty impressed with the lieutenant governor. I was talking to somebody the other day who said they texted him on the number that Charlie put up there, and he responded. He responded. So,
And
all
then the
right.
only
Well,
other thing I'll tell you quickly before I leave, I'd be remiss. Last Friday, Reps Morikawa, Tokioka, Nakamura, and myself were on a go-to meetings with Superintendent Arakaki and soon to be Superintendent Paul Zina. Got an update about what was going on, in the Kauai School District. We agreed to meet again this morning. And in 1 week's time, they gave us an update on how many students are using devices, how many students are on paper and pencil, how much interactions were there between teachers. And all of this information is critically important because we're looking at how to get prepared if COVID-19 returns. How do we get prepared to teach school in a new way? And we have people like the Chan Zuckerberg Foundation, Hawaii Community Foundation, a lot of these larger companies who are wanting to donate devices, or hotspots and assist our students in being better prepared to be 21st century learners. But we need data to submit to them to show them what our need is. And we are going to be meeting again next week, Friday. Paul and Bill have indicated who they're going to be following up with in the ensuing week. And we're hoping to get an exciting plan for the students on Kauai. And, we're not really going to be sitting here waiting to see what the DOE does. Kauai is simply Kauai. We'll just start jamming and going. And if they want to catch up, then we'll leave them a good roadmap.
well, thank you for that. I have invited both of them on the show. I spoke to Paul. He was supposed to check. Anyway, long story short, they haven't responded. I really would love to have them or someone from the DOE because we get a lot of questions about the schools, which I simply cannot answer. It's very hard to navigate through the DOE website to figure out what's going on statewide. But thanks for that. We'll try and get Bill or Paul on hopefully
And
in the
then
next.
I do have 2 quick points, Mel, before you're going to
Please,
sing or
please.
whatever it is you do. One was simply that, while I talk about reopening the economy safely, the contact traces and everything, I think though we're still all of the same opinion that until more widespread testing is available, especially of the rapid type, it's hard to open up the airport and it's hard to open up the visitor industry. And we'll be in that push and pull about those who want to come sooner and those of us who are reluctant without some of those tools. I do believe, like many others, that testing before you get on the plane is going to be the new normal. Vienna is now like paying for TSA pre-check. If you want to pay $200, you can get the test and then you can avoid the 14-day quarantine. So you're given a choice. We still don't have enough testing available to make that a choice, but hopefully we will soon, and that will help give better assurance, to our residents about what was going on. The second that I've been watching in the show, and I've got my phone just here to the left, the comments that ask about a lottery saving us and gambling of some type that's going to be an avenue of untapped revenue. The problem is in the US Constitution, if you permit gaming of any type in your state, then the Native Americans are able to run gaming too. And Native American tribes with federal script own property in Hawaii, and they would be able, if we said we only wanted a lottery only, and then they have property, they want to open a casino, they could open a casino. We're not able to regulate them. They're sovereign. And what is also of a concern to me, in spite of the best efforts of our delegation, as you can see, where the Native American Indians are in that CARES Act and getting funding, Native Hawaiians are not in that as, part of the Native American indigenous people, and they get no benefits and they don't have the same treatment as the American Indians. And it just worries me to no end that you would see an Native American Indian tribe running a financially successful casino, and the Native Hawaiians would be here and they would be left out of any kind of opportunity. And I think it would create incredible strife in our community. So those are some of the reasons why I don't think that gaming at this time is the right answer for us to solve the problems. And I hope some of the other things we have will work. But I've done this long enough to know you never say never. But I've got reasons why I feel strongly about this.
That is an hour show in and of itself, and we've been talking about how do we transition from COVID into keeping this show alive, and that's probably what we're going to do. I mean, we'll keep the show going, not every night, but regularly, and bringing up those types of issues. Because I tell you, Ron, this whole thing with these discussions that we've had has been so informative to so many people. And I'm not saying that to take credit. I'm just saying that it just happened, and we're blessed, and we want to continue, informing and educating. So with that, any you got a lot. I don't know if you have Facebook running, Ron, but if you don't, make sure you go back and check the comments, because there's a lot of good stuff on there. Charlie.
Yes. Well, I'd just like to say thank you so much, Ron, to our viewers. You got a little over an hour of direct information coming from the Senate President, especially from the Garden Isle of Kauai, representing the entire state of Hawaii in the Senate. And we are very, very grateful to him. And I'd just like to say thank you. One thing that I've always known Ron to be, and that is just straightforward and honest. And, I always tell people, because, they know that, he and Stephanie, they dialogue a lot. And the thing is, he's very transparent, and he's very open, and he always gives from the heart. And, some of you may or may not know, but this man, he gives generously to a lot of projects. And, we just don't get the word out enough. So I'd like to say thank you, Ron. Thank you very, very much.
No, thank you. And while I did say Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers, I haven't seen her in a few months, but Joy, Happy Mother's Day. Thank you for the
Happy
two
Mother's
wonderful
Day,
sons that we have. And they would not be as great as they are without all of the love and caring you poured into them. I appreciate you every day. I love you very much, and I hope to see you soon.
Yes. If not, Ron, just remember one thing. I can arrange to have you fly under the radar, and we'll keep it amongst ourselves, Ron. Don't you worry. Don't you worry.
You need a little bigger plane than the 172, that's for sure.
Well, I think he said under the radar. We were coming with one big barge.
Thank you again. Thank you again, Senator. It's been a rough week. It's been a rough day. We've lost a lot of people here. Russell, and tomorrow night we'll have the Hawaii Community Foundation. Darcy Yukimura will be on, explaining all of the programs and resources available. Please let everybody know. We'll post that up on the page. Sunday we'll take off for Mother's Day. Monday we have Tina Yamaki from the Retail Merchants Association there from Oahu. She'll be joining us to give us her perspective on how this COVID-19 is impacting the retail merchandisers throughout the state. And then, I talked to Charlie. It's not an easy thing to talk about, but the suicides is raising its ugly head on this island, and many people, and in fact, not just here. I just heard from a friend that one of his son's best friends committed suicide on Oahu just a few days ago. So I talked to Charlie and I said, let's put aside a day and let's have a couple of experts come on our show and discuss basically awareness, tips, what we all can do to help with this amazing, terrible crisis that we're experiencing. You know, we go to Kauai is not immune from this, and in fact, Kauai actually, I think, I don't know what the numbers are, but I know at one time we led the state. So that'll be Tuesday or Wednesday. We're waiting for confirmation, but you know, I hope we can get as many people on that. Awareness, you know, awareness, and she told me, I just spoke to her before we came on, no shame, no blame, just aloha, letting everybody know that we love them. You don't know how long you're on this earth. Let everybody know that you love them, and let's all do that. So and then we'll have Representative Okimoto back on Thursday. She's going to be coming on to talk about the prison release program, and she's been pretty outspoken on that, and we'll have some insights on that as well. So with that, Charlie, I asked Charlie, rather than somebody asked if the dogs howl when I sing. So, you know, I asked Charlie to, in light of what has been going on this last few days with you know, losing some people, I asked Charlie to take us out tonight and just play some nice music and some positive music. So Charlie, if you don't mind. So Ron, I'm sorry, you're not going to hear the dogs howl tonight. But we'll listen to Charlie for a little bit. Take it away, Charlie.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna do some island style, just to, you know, keep it lively. Hopefully that we hear this all the time, but you know, I tell you, it talks a lot about how we are here locally. On these islands, we do it island style. From the mountain to the ocean, from the windward to the leeward side. On these islands, we do it island style. From the mountain to the ocean, from the windward to the leeward side. Mama's in the kitchen cooking dinner real nice. Beef stew on the stove, throw me salmon on the ice. Eat and drink and sing all day. Connie Kapila in the old Hawaiian way. On these islands, you do it island style. There's the Doodle Boy shirt. From the mountain to the ocean, from the windward to the leeward side. Go Grandma's house on the week and clean yard cars. If we don't go, Grandma gotta work hard. You know my grandma, she love her boy real soft. I love my grandma every minute, every hour on these
All right, everybody. Thank you very much again for joining us. Thank you, Senator Kouchi. Don't forget, if you guys want that shirt, private message sizes and the number of shirts, just send it to my messenger and we'll get you guys the shirts. All right. Thank you again. Charlie, thank you for that nice outgoing music. Love you guys. Thank you guys.
Aloha.
Tomorrow night. Aloha.